Welcome to Bound by Books. I am one of your hosts, writer Danielle Bannister, and I'm joined today by writer Tina Moss. Welcome, Tina.
Hello, how are you, Danielle?
Oh, we were just talking about this retrograde stuff, just throwing everybody into, and it's, whether you believe in it or not, or if it's a placebo effect, it's happening.
Exactly. I frankly, anybody who doesn't believe in it, I'm going to prove you wrong this week because this has been the most intense Mercury retrograde I've ever experienced. And it's like very appropriate, I feel like, for the topics we're talking about today, because oh my God, it kind of does feel like we're living in a bit of a multiversal situation right now. And my head is spinning in all different directions. I actually did a thing that I'm very proud of. I moved out the release date of one of my books. I know, right?
Wow.
I didn't really decide to take myself to a crippling deadline. I said, you know what? This is dumb. Let me not actually add to my pile and let me push it out. So I pushed it out by a month, which works better in the release schedule anyway, because I have a short story coming out in Claimed Amongst the Stars anthology, which is next month in June. And then I pushed out my book instead of also releasing in June. Why I thought that was a good idea, I don't know, to July.
That's so a bad idea.
I know. I was
just from a marketing perspective. What are you going to be marketing? Both of them?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Why did I do that? I don't know. I'm crazy. So Alien's Temptation is officially moved out to July. I will be telling my readers. I'm sure they will be fine with it. And if they're not, quite frankly, I'm sorry, but I can't do it. So it's going to be July. How about you? How has your releases been going? You have your...
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm in the middle of a sort of rapid release, or rapid for me. It's not technically rapid for some people, but like every 3 months for me is rapid.
That's rapid.
When I'm only doing 4 releases a year typically to do,
I'd say that's rapid.
That's a lot for me. So I just released volume 2 of Where You Met Me. Volume 3 will be releasing soon.
Nice.
Within a few months, and then so it's just
awesome.
Going. It's
but that's exciting
machine. Yeah, this is my first series of, I've only ever done trilogies before, so this is like my first. Wait, there's more beyond 3 books. Okay, let's keep going. So yeah,
that's awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah. So today's podcast, since Multiverse of Madness just came out a few weeks ago, and us being the Marvel lovers of our group, we always love to take the opportunity to use Marvel and connect it to writing, because there is a connection to these movies and writing, either good or in bad ways. I mean, you can learn from these types of, mega hits. If you have not seen Multiverse of Madness, might be a good time.
Yep, some spoiler warnings.
Else. Yep. I mean, just the generic, but if you don't care and you just want to hear our opinions, keep listening. Yeah.
And listen, if you haven't seen Multiverse of Madness yet, we have a lot of feelings. Danielle and I have a lot of feelings regarding this movie. I think most people who see it do. I'm also going to throw in there, we're not going to talk about it so much today, but because it is another multiversal movie that we may touch upon it. Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm telling everybody I know to go see this movie because it is phenomenal. It is honestly probably one of the best movies that I've ever seen, and will be a repeat.
This is what I keep hearing.
It's amazing.
This is what I keep hearing.
Danielle, you have to.
Yeah,
it's epic. Just throwing that out there as a side tangent. Obviously, that's not sponsored. I wish it was.
No, I hear great things about that. In fact, mostly highlighting this is how you do a multiverse.
Yep.
Is what I hear. So.
Yeah. So I think we'll be semi spoiler free, because we're going to be talking about the continuity between the Marvel as a brand, how that relates to the writing, how that relates to how authors brand. So semi spoiler free, but there may be a couple of things in there if you're really, a diehard Marvel
that we
fan.
might be highlighting to prove our collective points.
Exactly. So if you're worried about spoilers, click away. No hard feelings. Come back when you've seen it.
Right. So yeah, our main sort of thrust for this particular podcast, we wanted to focus on branding, because I think after we both saw it and we both sort of like, what'd you think? What'd you think? And I think we both had a very similar response, is that it did not feel like a Marvel movie, that it missed the branding mark for us.
Right.
For us. But for those who might not really understand what does branding really mean, do you have any like general terms that could help educate some of us who might be a little confused about it?
I think the easiest way to describe branding is to use an analogy, right? If you want to think about branding, think about Apple, right? Apple is kind of a masterclass in branding, because now I am an iPhone user, so this is coming from a person who has bought into the branding and uses the product, right? But arguably, there are better phones from a technological standpoint than an iPhone. There just are. It's factual. I don't think most tech heads would dispute that. However, most people have an iPhone, and that comes down to the brilliance of Apple branding, because their brand is that you are always needing the next iPhone, right? Part of their marketing campaign is that they are the innovators of technology, even if there are technological phones that are better. But that boils down to their message and their branding. You believe what they believe and what they put forth. So the branding for an author is more about continuity between your style, your voice, the themes and tropes that you focus on, genre, but not necessarily, at least tangential genres, I would say. Like for me, it's paranormal romance and sci-fi. They're kind of sister genres to each other. And then like all of the external things like colors and fonts and cover styles, things like that. I think it was Mary and I went into a whole podcast about just branding. I'll link that one in the description below on YouTube. So if you'd like to go watch that podcast and haven't caught it yet, you can actually see the whole thing about branding. But that's kind of an overview of what branding is. So Danielle, before we really deep dive, what would you say what's the Marvel brand for the last decade kind of building up to this movie? If you had to say like, this is the things I think of when I think of the Marvel brand, what would they be?
For me, Marvel means character-driven plots. It means humor. It means action, and better, like it or not, family-friendly. They are films you can go and see as a family. Those are the things that sort of encapsulate a Marvel production of any kind, series or movie. For me, those elements are in play. Is that any different for you?
No, the funny thing is, as you were saying them, I'm like, oh, but this movie had that, and this movie had that, and this movie had that, but didn't have that. The family friendly.
Yep, it did not have that.
Multiverse is not family friendly.
No.
I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest takeaway is stylistic choices in the film, and we could go into those more, but I am a huge Sam Raimi fan. Sam Raimi, for those who don't know, is the director of this film.
Right.
He's most well known for the Evil Dead franchise, which is horror comedy, very big on camp, but also pretty big on gore. There is a large gore factor that was very much present in this film that was not present in other Marvel films.
Right.
He's also produced TV shows like Xena and Hercules. So I think in that respect, the Xena Hercules franchises did kind of fit with Marvel. It's very similar in feel, but when you're going classic Sam Raimi, director, horror-esque style, that is not a Marvel movie. I happen to think they're brilliant movies, but they're definitely not in the style of Marvel. And I think that's the biggest takeaway of where it missed the mark, because it was a Sam Raimi film, not a Marvel film.
Yep. And I think in terms of like sort of that branding, that those four things, that like the character, that's
Mhm.
always been huge for me, that these are character motivated movies, that
Yes.
the plot is sort of secondary. As long as
Right.
the character has a strong arc and we're going forward, then it feels like a Marvel movie, that feels more than just a superhero movie where
Yeah.
we're following a hero's journey. But this film did not feel like character came first at all. It felt
No.
like it was plot, and the characters were there to do whatever the plot needed it to do. And it didn't matter if it matched what the character should be doing or what you've set up to do.
Right.
It was doing whatever the plot needed the character to do.
The irony is, I'm not even sure, when I think back on it now that I've had a couple weeks to digest it, that it was even plot driven. I almost think it was like cinematically driven. It was kind of
Yeah.
like, I feel like they had this storyboard. They had storyboarded all these scenes and very on an epic scale, very beautiful visuals, and said,
yeah, absolutely beautifully visual.
you know, I'm going to kind of mishmash this around. I think the biggest character driven point, I almost feel like if they would have had this as a Wanda story, if they would have given us like WandaVision to the dark side, like Wanda to the dark side, rather than calling this Doctor Strange 2, we might have digested it a little better. I think the expectation of the Doctor Strange film 1, which I rewatched after watching Multiverse, to this film was so disproportionate to each other that it was hard to get into, like, you know, Stephen Strange's character. And the new character they introduced, who should have been a brilliant, diverse character, I can only remember her name because it's the same as a country. I know her name is America because it's otherwise I would not have remembered at all.
We know nothing about this character going in and nothing coming out. Nothing.
God. How do you have this character who is essentially like the crux of the story that's supposed to be the character driven story, right? This new character they introduced, who we know nothing about. We know and we care nothing about, therefore, right? It didn't matter what happened to her or why or the reasons behind these things, because they introduced nothing of substance that made us go, yes, I connect with this character, and oh, I really want to know more about her. There was none of
nothing.
that.
Yeah, she was
None
a
of
plot device.
Yeah.
She was there because the plot needed her to be there.
It's almost like a masterclass in plot device. Like, here's something you should not do, right? The big no. Here's a perfect example for years to come of plot device.
Yeah,
and
it was. I felt so bad because this could have been a really important and great character, and I hope they use her in future movies, and that they're not, that this is like her one and done, and they're gonna base her off the success or failure of this, because she needs an arc. She had no arc.
Yes.
She needs an arc.
The super sad thing too is I almost feel like with this particular character, they were trying to cater to a younger audience, right? Because she feels young. She makes these, like, again, minor spoiler, but not a big one. She makes like these star-shaped portal holes that is very Sailor Moon-esque to me. Like,
oh, it's very sad. Yeah.
But obviously doesn't appeal to the adult audience. It's very much appealing to the child audience in a film that is probably the darkest of the MCU films thus far.
Hands down.
Like, you're trying to appeal to this like child audience with this character in a super dark film where they're probably not even going to see this character, you know, unless parents brought them in thinking it was going to be like Doctor Strange 1.
Well, I mean, with the branding, they're going to bring them in because so far, Marvel has been fine to bring my, 10, 11, 12-year-old to, younger than that. People will usually, they'll check in and was it okay? Not this one.
If I was a parent, if I had kids that I brought that movie to.
Yeah, nightmare.
Like, you did me dirty. You did me dirty, Marvel.
I agree with you about the focus of Wanda. If this had been a Wanda movie instead of a Strange movie, I might have come out of it differently. But they would have also had to have changed, I think, one thing. Mm-hmm. And it was Wanda's motivation.
Yes.
Her motivation, I would have bought hook, line, and sinker if they had listened to WandaVision, which I don't think he actually watched prior to filming this.
Doesn't feel like it.
I think it's been confirmed he didn't watch it. But if we, in that post-credit scene where she's looking at the Darkhold and she, spoiler alert for WandaVision, I'm sorry, but she hears her kids and they're screaming for help, that they were in danger, then yes, send Mama Wanda out and let her do her thing. But she wasn't, kids were not in danger. They were in a safe and loving home.
What a great point. What a fantastic
She became a homewrecker.
Let's tie that in, because that, I mean, you hit it so well there, Danielle. That's brilliant. This goes into continuity in your books, right? So if you are writing, let's say book 1, and you have an epilogue that's going to lead to book 2, you better make sure that epilogue matches up with prologue or first chapter of the next book. Because if it doesn't, and you take a side turn, the readers are not going to buy into the story, right there. And I also do think it's very important to have that ending scene, ending chapter or epilogue, whatever is comfortable for you and your story, that does lead to the next book when you're building a series. That's important to branding. And it's also important to bring your reader to the next one in a realistic way. What Danielle just said about WandaVision would have changed this movie altogether.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have been mad at anything that Wanda did if she was trying to protect her children, but she wasn't. That wasn't what this was about.
Yeah, so, you're right. It was a very, I hesitate to say narcissistic, but it was almost a narcissistic impulse. They tried to play it off like it was a motherly thing that she was dreaming of her kids, but it really wasn't. It was a very selfish impulse, kind of the opposite of everything we think about mothers and motherhood in general. Usually we think of it as like self-sacrificing and, you know, giving up for your kids. Not saying that's necessarily the right view of motherhood either, but that's usually the impression that we have, particularly in the Marvel universe. But this wasn't. This was very much like, I want my kids and I don't care who I hurt, and if I hurt my kids, to get them.
Yes. And that's not the Wanda that we know from WandaVision. She had a huge character arc in WandaVision and basically had the same plot for her character arc, just done better in WandaVision than in Strange. They did like a pathetic arc of that.
And she learned that lesson already. She learned this lesson already.
She did. It's
if she's gonna go bad, like there's got to be a, like you said, there's got to be a continuity between the reasons. If her kids were in danger, oh hell yeah, Wanda's jumping off the baddie cliff, no problem.
I wonder. Kevin Feige. I'm not mad at you. I'm disappointed.
Just disappointed.
I'm
not
just
mad.
disappointed that
that's a mom response right there. That's a true mom response right there. Perfect.
You didn't catch that. In terms of, you know, with every single sort of one of these movies that has been coming out, there has been sort of a prerequisite of certain things that you have to read or pay attention to prior to watching this film. In theory, WandaVision, even though nothing except her having kids.
And no mention of Vision even.
And no mention of
was a driving force.
Only her kids, and not even where she left them, but only that she had kids comes in here. What If, to an extent, one episode of What If, to an extent, I think episode 4 of What If comes into play. And then I would assume Doctor Strange 1, but again, only really for one character.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you needed to see Doctor Strange in order to?
No.
No,
you didn't. And we were expecting something from Spider-Man No Way Home, some reference. I think part of that is the pandemic coming into play and the reversing of orders of the movie, because this was supposed to come out earlier. It ended up coming out after No Way Home.
Because America Chavez was supposed to be the one opening the portals in No Way Home, not so there's a little bit maybe there was a better plot for her in that movie. I don't know.
Maybe there was but I don't feel, I mean, that may be a Marvel direction in the future, less of the interconnectedness, so that you can introduce new audiences at any point in the series. I do feel like that seems to be a little bit of the direction they're going, more standalones, less series. And again, linking that back to writing, that is an important part for writers who are thinking about writing series, is that if you have a reader who's coming to your series later, or who's coming to a spin-off, or where they can pick you up essentially in your book history. So making sure that each book in a series is not giving a recap, but allowing a new reader to pick up book 3 and feel, okay, I can still keep going, or pick up book 7 in a series, or I can start with this spin-off series. Of course, there's always going to be reading order that's preferred, probably chronologically, but if you can allow readers into you at more entry points, that widens your
funnel to funnel more readers. And if you can,
and it feels like that's what Marvel's trying now. I think they went interconnected for a very long time in the previous phase, and then all of a sudden they're starting to pull back from that and say, okay,
after 10 years, I think they're realizing maybe we're alienating some people here. They don't want to watch 30 films before they watch this next one. I don't know why they wouldn't, but well, a prime example of that in terms of Marvel, in terms of needing 0 entry points, Moon Knight is a 0 entry point. So you can seriously start there and not have watched anything.
Which is interesting, because a lot of what leading up to Moon Knight, before I watched it, I thought there was going to be more connectedness, and I was very surprised that there was none. There was 0. So that's
there was one minor reference to Dr. Panther. Listen to me. to Black Panther, the ancestral plane.
Oh yes,
there was one mention of that, but that was it.
But
it didn't like change the plot, and what does that mean? You know,
and that's probably just like a tip of the hat or a nod to Marvel fans in general.
Exactly. So if you've been struggling to get into a Marvel, get in there, because that is going to be a character driven one. That is going to be humorous. That's going to have action. And it's going to be family friendly.
And diverse.
I mean, there's some violence, and diverse and emotional, and just, great show. Great show. Chef's kiss, that show. Sorry, sidetracked. I wanted to talk to you a little bit. We were just talking about character. What do you think? Did they succeed for you in this movie, advancing the character of Doctor Strange for you? Do you feel like you know more about him now after watching this film?
He's more romantic than I thought.
Did you watch the What If?
No.
Oh, see, okay. If you ever watch the What If, that actual one with Doctor Strange is actually really good, and it applies a lot to this movie.
Oh, okay.
But I will say, the connection to Doctor Strange and Christine in the cartoon was better and more believable than on the screen.
I mean, I liked her character, the way that they gave her more agency in this film. That's probably the one thing I will say. I do feel like she had much more agency in this film than she did in the first film.
Oh yeah, she was an afterthought, I think, in the
again, a plot device in the first film. It was interesting to see him, I guess, humanized. I think they did a nice job with humanizing him like one level more. I think it could have went way deeper, especially with this like strange mentor / fatherly role of this. Like they could have taken all of that way more, right? All of that could have been.
Oh, sure. That could have been a Peter Tony relationship. And it didn't turn into anything.
Yeah, no, now I'm just
gonna leave. It turns into a lot of cliched lines. A lot of cliched, like cringe-worthy dialogue. Like, oh, really? We're saying this? Oh. Okay.
And again, I'll give one big spoiler. So be prepared. The Zombie Strange for me
did not.
Let me preface this. I love zombie movies. Like I will eat up zombie movies like a pile of popcorn. Like I love them so much. I will watch them in any language, any director. Give me all the zombies. Love zombies. This was the one time I was like, you're making me not like zombies. and that's really hard to do. Like that's if
you
you're
can't
making
have
it go,
a
I don't want a
heartfelt
zombie.
speech as a zombie. It just doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work.
No. It's you're a zombie. Either you're a zombie or you're not a zombie. Not you're some weird avatar, a zombie driving magician
Yeah.
thing, sorcerer.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was so I'm like, Raimi, come on. You
Yeah.
look, we
It's
know.
too far.
We
Too far.
got it. This is
Yes.
just ridiculous.
I mean, it looked gross and whatever, but it
Yeah.
didn't match with the message you were trying to
No,
convey.
and you're
I wanted to laugh instead
Right.
of be serious, which is what the moment called for.
And you're getting to this weird necromancy thing, which is like any horror movie person is going to be like, okay, cool. But in a Marvel film, I
I
don't want necromancy in my Marvel film. Thank you
No.
very much.
Yeah, it's
Oh, it was bad. It was
all
bad.
right. So this is a good segue to talk a little bit about because this could sort of apply to I think authors who write maybe in a shared world, right?
Oh,
so
that's
you're
a good one.
using the
Mhm.
same characters in the same world. So the characters need to feel sort of the same in all the worlds that you're writing in. So if you
Right.
take a Doctor Strange, you're writing a Doctor Strange character, and then you take that your turn at Doctor
Mhm.
Strange. Doctor Strange still has to feel like Doctor Strange from
Mhm.
this other stories. But in this particular film, I'm gonna call Raimi sort of our writer.
Yeah.
For these.
I think that's fair.
I know he wasn't the writer, but
But
you know,
it's
the
fair.
visionary, the visionary. So you take somebody who has a very unique style like Raimi. You take
Mhm.
a director who has a very unique style like Taika.
Mhm.
You take even the Russo brothers.
Yep.
Very unique styles. You watch one of the films and you go, "Oh, that's Taika directed that." The
Yep.
Russo brothers. You know, you could tell who directed what.
Absolutely.
But I think, and maybe I'm wrong, two of them succeeded in making it the characters fit in these universes
Yeah.
the same, and one
Didn't.
did not.
No.
And I'm gonna say that it's partially because of this branding ball that
Yep.
had been dropped. What do you think about? Do you think that if the branding had been more on point, that this film could have come across differently?
Yes. I think, okay, in fairness to Raimi, I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but
Right.
I imagine that Marvel said we want a darker, grittier film.
I know they wanted a horror. They wanted this to be their first horror, which is why they chose.
Which is why. Why? That's like Disney going off and saying, you know what would be great today for kids if we give them a horror film. Like,
I don't
it
know.
doesn't-
I
you're
don't-
not horror.
But
Marvel
you
is
know
not
what?
horror.
If you're gonna do that, if that's gonna be, you have to market it as a
Right.
horror. That
Right.
this is a new branch of Marvel. You cannot just market it as a regular Marvel movie with the 10 years of branding that have gone before.
You know what? Stranger Things, which is by the time this podcast comes up, I think the new season will be out, right? I
Yes.
think of Stranger Things.
Yes.
That is a direction they could have went in and
Yes.
pulled off, because
Yes.
Stranger Things is still palatable enough and not grotesque enough or gory
Yeah.
enough to still appeal, I think, to the Marvel universe. I think
Yep.
the problem was we just got too into Raimi style. That I walked out of that saying, "Oh, it was so nice to see Evil Dead 4." Honestly, that's how I felt after seeing the film, with a
Yeah.
sprinkling of superhero stuff thrown in.
Right.
I do think that's partially a miscommunication and a mistake in the branding, because if they did do a little bit of that, they gave us a little bit of the Stranger Things vibe. I think they even used the same music, or it was very similar at one point, because I remember going, "Oh, is that Stranger Things?" And I looked up and I said, "Doctor Strange." So I think they played off of each other, but they didn't go far enough. They didn't prepare us well enough. And you're coming at this from a sequel. It's not a brand new film. It's a sequel to the original Doctor Strange.
So it should be connected.
Right.
It should feel like the same type of movie.
Exactly. Why not just call this Wanda? Why not go Dark Wanda and have a horror movie about her? We didn't need Doctor
Wanda
Strange.
and the Darkhold. Call it good.
Yes.
And you know.
We
And,
could have
okay,
been
so
perfect.
here's something that I wanted to talk about in terms of the Darkhold, the use of the
Mhm.
Darkhold.
Mhm.
A lot of people are saying, well, she was, evil because of the Darkhold.
No.
How?
No.
We didn't see that.
Nope.
We were told that, but we never
Repeatedly.
saw that. We didn't see Wanda get corrupted by the Darkhold. So
Right.
that's a great, I think, illustration between showing versus telling in writing.
Yes.
Being told that Wanda has been corrupted by the Darkhold versus actually seeing her actually shift and become corrupted.
Did we see anyone actually corrupt? Because we were told so many times that it corrupts people. Did we actually see anybody get corrupted by it in the flashbacks? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, we were just told this
Over
information, and that's
repeatedly.
that's lazy writing. That's
right.
That's not...
And they kept pushing the narrative of Wanda's maternal instinct rather than Wanda's maternal instinct being twisted by the Darkhold, because that would have made sense, right?
Sure.
That would have made much more sense in the sense of like, okay, she's being pushed to the edge by this thing, by this all-encompassing evil, let's say, for lack of better. But you're right, there was none of that shown on screen. It was just like, I want to see my kids, basically.
Yeah. And if I don't get what I want, I'm gonna kill you all.
Yeah, exactly. If I can't have them, no one will, regardless if they're happy and living a thriving life or not.
It you know what it reminded me of? Oh, and I'm gonna get heat for this.
That's okay. Bring it on.
It felt like a DC movie.
Oh yeah, it did. Oh yeah,
it just
totally
yeah. And I can't apologize for that. No. That's how I felt.
Nope, I can't. No, I agree. It just yeah.
And I felt so bad when it was over. I felt so bad because I wanted to like it.
Yeah.
So much. I was so excited. I bought tickets day of. Whole family went. We went early. We were ready. We were pumped. And here's the thing. My son and my ex-husband, we all kind of went as a family because we're all big Marvel geeks.
Mm-hmm.
They liked it. My daughter and I were like, this didn't feel like a Marvel film.
That's kind of I didn't hate it.
I just wanted it to be better.
But that's because I'm a Raimi fan. I feel like if I was not a huge horror buff that I am, and I do really like Raimi films in general and his productions, I feel like I may not have liked it. But because I already have that backstory essentially of all those things, I liked it in the sense of like, ooh, I could see where that came from and that influence came from and that came from. But that's taking away the whole Marvel aspect of it.
Yeah.
As a Marvel film, I thought it was horrendous, to be quite frank. Like I had nothing good to say from a Marvel fan aspect. It was only because, I happen to like, horror and this particular director that I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. That was kind of interesting. That was kind of cinematic. But from a storytelling perspective and from a Marvel perspective, no, not at all.
In rewatches, this is going on the not watch again. This has reached Incredible Hulk level for me.
Oh no.
And I know it's like,
no.
I don't want to watch it again. I do want to lift up one other thing, and I bring it up for a point for writing purposes. So there's one scene that happens in there that seems to have people completely divided in terms of if it was awesome or if it was what. And that is the music fight.
Oh, okay. I got so excited. I'm so sorry. I am in the camp that was brilliant. I thought it was so unique. I thought it was so fun. And again, it has no business in a Marvel movie. I don't know where that factored in at all. But like if you took that scene and put it in another movie where it actually fit appropriately, I would have been like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like this alone deserves, all the awards. But
I'll tell you why. Yeah, go ahead.
But in that movie,
and the reason why I don't think it fit there is not anything to do with the fight itself, which was a completely original thing and completely like, I don't have a problem with the fight. My issue is where it happened. Why is there a harp and a piano in Evil Strange's lair? It made no sense.
Evil Strange wouldn't have a harp and a piano in a dystopian
He has not
universe.
been written that way. He has not been given anything to indicate that he would be a harp loving, piano playing, music loving, let's put it in my evil lair type of guy. And that's why it didn't work for me, because it didn't match the setting it didn't match the character. So sometimes scenes are like that too. Like certain things, you have to sort of be careful of your surroundings. And does that make sense that the character would interact with these things?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that's why for me that scene did not work. It was like, oh, somebody had a really cool idea and they made it work by just throwing it in where they wanted to put it, but not having any reason logically.
I think by that point in the film, I was already like resigned to the fact that we were not getting a Marvel movie. So I was just kind of like, okay, I'm along for whatever the heck this journey is. And, you know,
what was there a point for you when you were watching it that when you went, oh,
I'm pretty sure it was in the first 15 minutes, to be honest.
It kind of was. And I kept waiting. I kept holding off judgment, going, you know what? The end credit is going to explain everything, and I'm not going to be mad at it anymore.
No, you were just more mad.
I was more mad. I was livid.
Once I kind of saw like the classic Raimi style, and I couldn't pinpoint it now, but if I went back and watched, I know that I could find the exact moment where it first happens. But once I saw it, I was like, oh, this is what we're getting. Oh, okay. I'll just watch it from that perspective.
So we've talked a lot about the movie itself, but I think all of this really can translate to a writer and being careful when you're writing things, especially in series that are interconnected. Absolutely. You have to be careful of these things, but even just branding in general, if you are trying to brand yourself, take it from me. If you're trying to brand yourself as a romance writer, maybe don't write the fantasy books. Maybe don't write that young adult. Maybe stay in your lane and stick to your branding.
Oh, Danielle. Danielle has learned this lesson so hard, and I'm just going to apologize because we beat you down for it. But it is a good lesson of pen names, of sticking to your brand, not only sticking to your genre, or like I said, you know, partner genres, sister genres, whatever, but also to your voice, to the things that matter to you. I mentioned in a previous podcast that I had discovered through my writing that I'm very into found families. I'm very into this idea of like interconnected friendship rather than blood. And that's something that I didn't know about myself that I discovered through writing. And now I need to make sure that that's something I consider moving forward in all of my books, because it is something that readers will come to know and expect from me. So finding those nuggets of things that are true to you and then sticking to them, because it is a promise to the reader, right? You never want to be like, for example, here is this sweet small town closed door romance. I've now written 5 books of them and you expect this. Oh, by the way, here's this bombshell horror book. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's like Stephen King suddenly, you know, writing a romance story. Probably not going to work out. He wouldn't write under that pen name because the brand is too established.
Absolutely. Well, even the same thing, if you're writing a series of books and they're all steamy, say, and the last book,
you close the door.
Readers are gonna get annoyed with you.
I mean, you'll get a lot. It'll get a lot of talk. You'll get a lot of reviews. It may not be the way
they may not be good ones.
It will definitely get talked about, though. I will say somebody out there is going to do this. I know it. Just because, you know, it might be a brilliant marketing strategy. Piss off readers, everybody in the last book, kind of like this movie because we are talking about it. So
we are. But you know what? That said, a lot of people really loved this movie. So I don't want to like say our opinion is the only opinion. Absolutely not.
It's not the only opinion, but it's the right one.
You heard it here first, folks.
Well, I think that about does it, huh? Where can
I think so. Only downhill.
All right. Well, listen, like I said, like Danielle said, you're entitled to your opinion. It's just, if you liked it, it's probably wrong. At least from a Marvel head perspective. From a horror movie perspective, we're all in. So, but I hope that today taught you a lot about branding, about how you should stay in your lane. Lesson that Danielle has learned well. And we will see you next time. So be sure to tune in for another episode of Bound by Books.
Bye.
Bye.
Wait! Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on our website, boundbybookspodcast.com.